Welcome into the Hear Me, See Me podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Bruner. November is a month where we tend to take time to thank the men and women who've served our nation through military service. We're going to dive into that today and how that ties into mental health and perhaps some unique issues that we need to be aware of, whether we know someone who served and we love them and want the best for them, or maybe you are someone who has served yourself or you have someone in your family and want to know a little bit about why you may be feeling the way you are. Here to guide us through the discussion is Dr. Christina Menager. She is with the VA Eastern Kansas Health System. Thank you so much for being here. This is a great topic, a timely topic, because we do appreciate those in the military. And if you haven't served in the military, you may not realize there are a lot of issues, unique dynamics that play into military service that might be impacting you when your time is done. But for you yourself, how long have you been with the VA?
I have been here for 5 years with Eastern Kansas VA.
Have you seen a lot change over that time? Do we still approach mental health among our service members the same way today as we did even 5 years ago?
Absolutely not. I think there's been a lot of big changes. There have been laws passed, and I think one of the most important things is that there's so much more awareness. The VA has worked really hard to reduce the stigma around mental health and encourage veterans that, you know, if you need help, reach out. Reach out, because that's what we're here for.
And that's exactly why we're here today, having this discussion, because of that effort to make sure that our folks who've served know that you are there for them. There are some unique circumstances that people in the military experience from a variety of realms. And I want to start the conversation there with what some of those things are. So first of all, what we typically think of when it comes to military service. We know that our soldiers and airmen and naval servicemen, don't want to leave out any branch of the military here, but they may find themselves deployed to places where not pleasant things always are happening. What are some of those experiences and how do they impact a person?
Yeah, well, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of someone. Think about someone in an active combat zone, whether you are in the combat or just simply supporting people in active combat. You are potentially under threat 24/7. That activates our stress response in
fight
our
or
body.
flight.
Our fight or flight, yes, you've heard of it before. That response is really meant to be turned on and then turned off once the stressor ends. So think for a minute about times you've had fight or flight, and think about that being on for months.
Heart starts
year,
racing.
over a year.
Head on a swivel.
Absolutely. And then think about having multiple deployments, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deployments over the course of maybe 10 years. Our bodies are really not made to take that level of stress, and it affects not only our bodies, but our brains as well, our mental health.
How is it affecting our brain to be under constant stress?
It really rewires it. So what can happen for many people is that they will start to have an overactive stress response. It'll go off, in other words, when there aren't stressful things that are going on. One of the things that we see with veterans coming back from active combat, again, whether they end up having mental health concerns or not, is they tend to be more on alert, looking around, seeing if there are any threats, more difficult to sleep. They find that they startle more easily. People suppress their emotions as well when you're in a combat zone. You don't need to be sad or anxious. That's not helpful in that situation, right? You need to be alert and ready. So we see quite a bit of that when people are transitioning back from deployment.
Beyond the stress, even just if someone's in an active combat situation, what sorts of things might they see that the average person, God willing, will never see?
Yeah, I mean, the stories that folks have shared with me, and it truly is so meaningful that they're willing to share these things with me, can be pretty horrific. The death, dismemberment that they've seen, the things that they have been required to do as well in order to save their lives and the lives of fellow service members can be pretty horrific. And again, it might seem very, at the time, this is a usual day for them, right? Because that's what they have to do to get through. But when you come back and you have time to reflect on it, for many people, that is something that can haunt them. And there's an extra layer for some people, which is called moral injury. Moral injury is when someone engages in activities that go against their moral code. Most of us were raised with thoughts like, thou shalt not kill, right? So what does it mean then that I did take someone's life overseas, even though it was in active combat? The way you make sense of those two things, for some people, can leave them feeling really stuck, really guilty, really shameful, and that then cascades into other mental health conditions like PTSD or depression.
How does it get compounded if, as you mentioned before, with even just the stress and anxiety, this all happens, you come back, you're trying to decompress, and we're going to send you out again. You're going to go on another mission and another mission and another mission. You really never have time to recover.
You don't. You know, a really interesting finding is they found that folks in World War II had lower rates of PTSD than folks in our most recent wars. And there could be a couple reasons for that, but one is they came back on ships. They had time to talk about it and decompress. Now people come back on planes. They only have hours. And until I would say fairly recently, there wasn't a lot of support for when they did come back. It was just supposed to be business as usual. Things have changed now in the military, where they're allowing people more time to decompress. They're offering them more services, which is wonderful. But yeah, then you get sent right back out. So one of the things we know increases someone's risk of substance use and mental health conditions, their chance of developing them, is multiple deployments. What they saw over there and what they did, how long those deployments are, all of those things can compound for people.
So those are the experiences with active service and deployment. How could those things then manifest themselves when you come back to give you a clue, either to yourself or to people around you, that you need some help, something's not right?
So again, as I mentioned before, it's normal to have some of those when you're first coming back. So I want to caution that people shouldn't jump to conclusions, right? That something's wrong with them if they come back and they find that they're jumping easily, that they're really shaken by seeing, for example, stuff on the side of the road when they're driving, right? That can be something that people are surprised by but can upset them. So usually we say give yourself, a couple months to 6 months to let yourself readjust. If you find after that you're still struggling, to reach out. And what do I mean by struggling? Are you having difficulty doing the things and living your life the way that you would like it to be lived? So for example, are you having difficulty going to places and doing the things you'd like to do or that you used to be able to do? Do you feel like you're not connecting emotionally with your family and friends the way that you used to before your deployment? Are you having trouble sleeping? Are you having trouble just feeling your emotions the way they normally are? Are you avoiding things that you used to enjoy? Those are the kind of things that we'd want to say, you might want to come in and chat with someone. To do a check, see how you're doing, and see if you need help.
Substance use, you mentioned, that can be an issue?
Absolutely. So when people are struggling with their emotions, for a lot of us, we turn to self-cope. And how do people self-cope? With substances. And that can be alcohol. It can also be recreational drugs, but it can be prescription drugs as well. So if people find that they're using those a lot more than they used to, if they feel like they need them to get by, if someone tells them, I'm a little bit worried about your use, those are all signs you might want to, again, reach out for support.
The first part of what you said, though, I think is very important to stress, that these feelings and reactions are normal. How big of a step is that for telling our active duty military members as they're coming back from deployment, for them to be aware that this is normal? Because I think that they might fear, okay, it's not. Can I talk to anybody about it? And is it ever going to go away?
The other thing, too, is mental health is so stigmatized, and reaching out for mental health is so stigmatized in the military. Every day I talk to veterans who in the past were discharged because they had a mental health or substance use condition and they reached out for help, and that caused them to then have to leave. Things are very good to hear different now in the military because they understand that, again, that is normal. And by talking to other service members and realizing, wait, they feel the same way I do, that helps to not only help people feel better, but it actually decreases your risk of developing something like PTSD and depression.
Okay. The other part of military service that I think is unique to the experience that can perhaps contribute to mental health is just the environment that you're in. And I think sometimes it's interesting, you'll meet a veteran, you'll hear, they struggled when they came back home. You'll say, were you deployed? And they say no. And you think, okay, well, then why are you struggling? Why are they struggling? What is it about military service that is just a unique environment?
Yep. One thing I do want to add on is, people can experience trauma even if they weren't deployed. We know that somewhere between 1/3 to 1/4 of women who serve in the military experience something called military sexual trauma. And a pretty substantial population of men as well experience the military sexual trauma. You can also just experience trauma just as part of your work. For example, I've talked with veterans who saw a horrific accident on base, and that impacted them. But to your greater point, there's a lot of positive things about the military service. It provides structure, it provides community, it provides a sense of purpose. Think about waking up every day and realizing your work is keeping people in this country safe, right? That you are really the linchpin here between America and the rest of the world in our safety. That gives enormous purpose to your life, and to knowing that the service member next to you has that same belief, right, as that same purpose. Now, when you're discharged, and for some people it takes quite some time, it can take several years, right, so you do have some period of adjustment. Well, now, where's your community? Where's your purpose, right? Where's that sense of structure? You have to make that for yourself. And for some people, they've served for 20 plus years, so this is the first time they're having to find their own housing, make a resume, find a job, figure out health care, right? Those kinds of things. That is very stressful, and all those stresses are coming at the same time that we have taken away that community and purpose. And that's why in that first year after transitioning, we know that veterans are at increased risk for things like suicide and mental health conditions. Anyone would be stressed, right, with those kinds of factors at play.
How big of a factor, too, even while someone is still in the military, is it that we're talking about a very transient population? I mean, we talk about it in our business. Most people, when they start out, have to go somewhere else for their first job. Military men and women are going to wherever they're assigned, and it can be far away from home, and suddenly the friends that they had maybe when they were in high school, they're not around anymore, certainly not, maybe not talking on the phone every day with them, and your family's not there. So how does that play into even just for the folks who are still in the service?
Yeah, that isolation and lack of social support is huge. Last year, I believe it was, the Surgeon General came out and said that loneliness is one of the biggest health concerns in our country. And he shared a little bit about his own struggles with loneliness and connecting. The service is men and women. It is predominantly men. And we know that half of all men report no close relationships outside of their own immediate family. And then you add in, like you said, this extra layer amongst military members of you are not living where your family lives or where your family of origin or where you grew up. And we're just ripping away more and more supports and community that people have. And then again, once you discharge, now you don't even have the military community. That would be difficult for anyone to deal with.
So when you're coming home then, or after you have left active service, you're transitioning to civilian life, what are the red flags there? What do we need to be watching for?
Yeah, so there's a couple things to be concerned about, and it kind of depends on what we're talking about. Well, when it comes to something like mental health, suicide, substance use, obviously an increased use of substances or a relapse in substances is something to be concerning. Emotions too, when you just don't feel like yourself. Maybe you feel a lot sadder than normal, more anxious. It could be, as well that you just feel kind of empty, like it's difficult for you to feel things. You don't feel as connected to other people as you once did. That can be a sign that someone's struggling, or you're just having difficulty taking care of your everyday activities. Maybe you find it challenging to feed yourself, to bathe yourself. That kind of thing. Activities of daily living is what we call it. Those are the things we'd be most concerned about.
Again, on some level, are some of those feelings normal?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, put yourself in these shoes. You've had a career for maybe quite some time, and suddenly you're having to figure all these things out yourself. You don't have a community. Any one of us would struggle. But if it's going on for a long time, and if you really feel like you are not able to live the life you want, that's when you want to reach out. And the VA is here for everyone. Anyone can reach out to us. You can come to your local VA. Just go to va.gov. You can find where your local VA is. Or you can also call 1-800-MY-VA 411, I believe. Okay, thank you.
That's the number to call.
Yes, that's the number to call.
What strategies do you offer then, folks? I mean, what would be some practical solutions that people can incorporate as they find their purpose again? I mean, some of them could be as basic, I imagine, as make a list.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it really depends on the person, but some of the things that we offer folks, For folks transitioning out of the military, we have something called the M to VA program, military to VA, that helps people transition out, gets them all the services that they need, gets them connected as well. So that's a wonderful program that we offer. For folks who are already out, there's a couple other things as well. You can walk into any VA and say you need mental health help, and we'll help you, get you connected, get you set up. There's a new program that a lot of people aren't familiar with called Whole Health at the VA as well. Whole Health is just what we've been talking about. It talks with veterans, what is your mission, aspiration, and purpose in life? And how can we help you find it? And that might be through traditional mental health care. That might also be through other means like yoga, for example, or Tai Chi, classes about gardening, about cooking classes, all different types of things that we can offer. What community groups can we get you connected with as well? There's a reason there are so many veteran community groups, because veterans miss that community, right? So how can we get you connected with those as well?
And I imagine the answer is different for everyone.
Yes.
There might be some people who walk away and they're like, I want nothing to do with anyone.
Sure.
No offense, but I just don't want to be around anybody anymore.
And if you feel like you are living the life you want, if you feel happy and satisfied with that life, then do it.
Nice. Well, we talked a little bit about stigma and accessing resources. I want to dive into how things have been changing and evolving and how to find the resources if you need to in just a minute. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the Hear Me, See Me podcast. We are having a discussion today with Dr. Christina Menager with the Eastern Kansas VA Health System. Welcome to you, and for all that you are doing to assist veterans with mental health. We've talked about the unique situations and circumstances and experiences that our veterans have, but how do they get help when they come back and realize that they need it? And why aren't people asking for help in the first place? Stigma, we use that word a lot. How does it apply to the military?
Well, I want to even take a broader scope. Mental health in general is stigmatized in our country. Research shows that people wait an average of 7 years before reaching out once they experience a mental health condition. So it is not only a military and veteran issue. Many of us struggle.
I like to say too that it's not just because you're talking about mental wellness doesn't mean you have a mental illness. Because I think sometimes people struggle getting help because they think, well, this means I'm unwell. Or
no, absolutely not. In fact, we'd love if people can come in before things get to that point. One of the things the VA has actually done towards that aim is we've embedded psychologists, social workers, and psychiatrists in primary care so that people can receive mental health help before it gets to the point where they need to go and get specialized services in mental health. We want to prevent, right, it from getting to that point. So that's one of the things actually that we've done towards that aim. But you know, I think the stigma amongst veterans can be traced back to the fact that veterans are used to doing things for themselves. They're used to being the helpers, right? So the idea that they then need help can be very challenging for many of them. I found one of the best resources when talking to veterans about that is the Don't Wait, Reach Out campaign that the VA has put forth. This is a campaign that's focused on encouraging veterans to reach out if they need mental health help. And what I love about it is that it's videos of other veterans talking about, here have been my struggles, here were the barriers I faced in reaching out, and here's how I benefited after reaching out. That often goes so much further than just me sitting here and talking to people to see, here's someone just like me who benefited from reaching out for help and support.
Absolutely. When you think about how the evolution of mental health in the military and how the stigma has changed, or at least trying to reduce it, how has it changed? Because you mentioned earlier that you've had some veterans share with you that they mentioned they needed assistance for mental health and then they were discharged.
Yes. So one of the things the military has done differently, probably in the last, I would say 10 years or so, is that they now offer mental health and substance use treatment while people are in the military. So people can go and see counselors or therapists. They can get specialized treatment for substance use. So they're not automatically discharged anymore for those conditions. So I do think that has been helpful in reducing stigma within the military. After serving, one of the things the VA has done has open up more services and options for veterans. So there was a recent law passed a few years ago called Compact Act that said any veteran, if they are in a mental health or suicide crisis, can come to any VA or community ER, seek help, and the VA will cover those costs for them. So I think that has been huge to let everyone know if you are a veteran, you can come and seek help for those conditions.
How has the military needed to change its thinking and come to the realization that our men and women who serve are not unthinking, unfeeling, detached, unemotional robots? They are human beings.
I think part of it has been people coming forward and telling their stories, that's had a huge impact. We've had, people who are really positively impacting the military. They have a lot to offer, and they might also have a mental health condition. It's not an either or, right? Mental health conditions are becoming more and more common, especially amongst younger groups. I think the military had to realize if we want to continue to recruit, we're going to have to figure out a different way to address this because it's not working the way that we've been doing it.
One thing that we were talking about earlier before we started this conversation that we've been recording is some of your work that you have done. We were kind of laughing about it, is the caveman brain, which I think is very, very interesting, and especially in how it applies to the military. Okay, so explain it. What does this mean, and how does it really tend to affect people who are transitioning out of the military, maybe in particular?
So most of human history, we have spent it as cavemen, right? In small hunter-gatherer groups. Agrarian agriculture life really only came about 10 to 30,000 years ago. That's a very brief blip in human history. And that's not enough time for your brain to change. So your brain was shaped over millennia to be good at a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. So what does that mean? How do hunter-gatherers live? Well, when we study them, and there still are some in the Amazon basin and Papua New Guinea, what we found is that they are at the fitness level of an ultra-marathon runner. They spend,
that's not me.
No, ditto. They spend all their time outside in the sunlight, right? They have such close-knit communities. Everyone you see every day are people you've grown up with, you've seen every day, you have very close connections with. All of those factors, then think about the military, right? They often spend a lot of time outside. Exercise is built in to the military. They're required to be in peak physical fitness, right? It gives you purpose too. So hunter-gatherers have clear purpose to every activity they do. They're not just doing things for no reason, right? They're getting food to feed their family. They're building a structure to keep everyone safe. And the military gives you clear purpose too. And then that community. You don't spend any time alone in hunter-gatherer groups. People are revered as shaman, actually, when they spend significant times alone. And again, in the military, you're around people all the time, whether you want it or not, you're around people. And what research shows is those factors actually protect us against mental health conditions. Because think about this, hunter-gatherers don't have easy lives. They lose half of their children before adulthood, having to constantly deal with starvation, with threats from other tribes, and yet anthropologists who've been embedded with them for 10 or 20 years say they don't have mental health conditions. And it's because these factors actually protect or safeguard against those conditions. And the military has a lot of them built in as well. But for most of us in our daily life, we don't have to exercise. Heck, Melissa, many of us could spend our whole lives in our house and never leave. You can get a job from home, you can get your groceries ordered, you don't have to move your body, you don't have to talk to anyone. We have modernized many things that protect us against mental health out of our lives.
So apply that to folks transitioning out of the military, the community thing that you talked about. Yep. Isolation can become a risk because you don't have that built-in community around you. But the exercise piece of it.
Yes.
Now, I know when I have not exercised that I find myself being more stressed. I don't feel as good. I'm in a crabby mood. Those are all things that exercise fixes. There's a reason why that all happens if I haven't been exercising.
We think about exercise as being good for our body, but it is by far the single best thing you can do for your mental health. And here's the good news. You don't have to be an ultra-marathon runner to get the benefits. Research shows that as little as 3 to 4 workouts a week for 30 minutes, moderate levels of exercise, so we're not talking about sprinting or anything like that.
Go for a walk.
Yeah, has benefits. Just from that 3 days a week, 30 minutes. The challenge is, how do you make that part of your life, right? Because your caveman brain is going to tell you not to do it unless there's a purpose to it, a purpose to the exercise. So for example, I will let myself only listen to whatever podcast or book on tape that I'm listening to when I'm exercising, and that's my reward. Maybe you talk to someone. That's an enjoyable social time when you're doing your exercise. Maybe you do have somewhere you need to go. You need to walk down to the grocery store, for example. That's fantastic. Maybe you're doing it with a friend. That accountability, that could be it for a lot of people.
And that brings you your community.
There you
community
go.
back around you. So obviously exercise isn't going to be a prescription cure-all for anyone who's struggling
No.
after service or transitioning. So if that doesn't help and you need a little bit more assistance, how do you walk us through what happens? What is the process of finding assistance if you're someone who's been in the military or knows someone who's been in the military and is struggling, needs some assistance? What does that look like? What do you do first, and then how does it progress from there?
So you can go to any VA. All VAs have an ER or walk-in hours, and let them know that you're struggling, that you need help and need to get connected. You can call 1-800-MY-VA-411 as well to get the location of your nearest VA. For some people, if you are in the middle of a crisis, you can call our Veteran Crisis Line as well. It's 988, then you press 1. You can also text. The text number is 838255. And we have an online option as well, www.veterancrisisline.net, that you can reach out to if you are in a crisis. Obviously, it depends on the person and what they have going on, but generally what's going to happen is someone who's a mental health counselor or therapist will do an assessment to understand what's going on with this person, what might they need. Those decisions are always made collaboratively. We're not doing anything to anyone. We want to have a conversation about what changes do you want to make in your life and how can we help you reach it? And then the next steps might be therapy or substance use care. It could be medication. It might be the connection with whole health that we talked about earlier. For some people, they do need residential or inpatient care. That is a small subset. But again, that is a discussion that that person can have with a counselor or therapist.
You know, nationwide, regardless of military, even outside of the military and the VA, there is this access issue. How long is it typically taking to get people connected with a therapist? And if it does take some time, what is going to be offered in the interim so that people aren't kind of left hanging out there while they wait for that first appointment? Because it's not perfect for civilians,
Absolutely
so I imagine
not.
the VA's got to be the same way.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So each VA differs as far as their wait times, but if the wait time is going to be more than a few weeks, then we can actually refer them to the community and the VA covers that care. So that's a change that has been made within the last, I think, 5 or 7 years, something like that, where if we cannot get someone in timely, then we will refer them to the community so they can get their care there and we will cover those costs for them. At our VA, we're able to get people in within a week or two, by and large. And if someone is already connected with VA care and they're getting primary care, go to your primary care provider, walk in, and those people I talked about before who are embedded with primary care, they can see you same day and get you started right then.
How do programs like Whole Health also help to maybe expedite the process of getting people connected?
So Whole Health really doesn't have a wait list. They have groups and individuals that you can see right away. The individuals are called Whole Health coaches, and it's just what I mentioned before. They help you figure out what's your mission, aspiration, and purpose. A lot of the classes, you don't even need to be enrolled at the VA. If you just search Whole Health VA, you can get connected with your local group, and they have a lot of classes just online that you can join.
Why is this issue so important for us to all understand, and not even just the veterans and our active duty servicemen and women, but everybody to understand that this is important?
Mental health affects all of us. Even if you are sitting here and thinking, well, I don't think I've ever had a mental health condition, you've known people who've had it. It affects our ability to live our life, to spend time with our loved ones, to be productive at work. So even if this is not something that you've experienced, it has affected people close to you. And I alluded to this earlier, rates of many mental health conditions are rising as well. The stigma around mental health is still a huge barrier for many people. So by talking about it, by learning about it, we reduce that stigma and make it more likely people will reach out and get help. I mentioned a little bit earlier about the 988 number that we have. There's also 988 for everyone else. You can just call 988. It's our National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Excuse me. Just stay on the line, and then if you're a veteran, you press 1. I don't want anyone to wait to reach out. Reach out if you need help.
That is such an important message. If anybody hears themselves in any of this conversation today, obviously we've mentioned 988 for people. It can be scary though, to pick up that phone or to walk in the door for the first time.
Absolutely.
What can you say to give them a little nudge?
Absolutely. You're not alone. You're not alone. This is something so many of us have struggled with, and it can be so difficult when you're in the thick of it to think that things can get better, but they can. They can. There is hope out there, and you can come out on the other side of it. Even if you don't feel like you can, you can. And that first step is going to be the hardest. It really will. And after that, think about times where you've been struggling with something and then shared it with someone and you feel so much better afterwards. That's how it's going to feel. So don't wait. Don't wait. Reach out.
That's very good advice. Our men and women who served our nation, as you said, it was their mission to keep us safe. So they have done something for all of us. We want to do something for all of you. We thank you, Dr. Christina Menager, for being here, sharing those resources with us. If you missed it, you can go to WIBW.com/hearmeseeme. Click on this. I'll have them posted there. Plus, we also on that same page have a whole list of resources for in and out of the military for you to reach out, because we want everyone to know that we hear you, we see you.